G'day and welcome to the weekly Camera Ready Confessions, a weekly live stream bridging personal branding and video marketing so you can shine as the obvious choice. With me, your host, Zoe Wood, the Video Confidence Coach. Thank you everyone joining me today. If you're watching or listening to the live stream on all platforms, make sure to see the first link in the description to check out our show notes, our detailed show notes and breakdown of everything we discussed today. And make sure that if you are down in the description, there's a high chance you're down in the comments as well. Make sure to comment any of your questions or your thoughts or your ideas for camera confessions throughout today's live stream and after the live stream. And if you're watching in the hashtag replay squad, please do comment there because I'll make sure to respond to every single one of your comments. And if you want to find out more information, as mentioned before, check out the link in the description for our show notes with our live stream podcast and products and services that we have at vcc.training. All right, the arbitrary intro is on the way. Audio is working this time. We'll get into that later. I look a little bit pink, but hopefully that's fine. If not, I'm going to deal with that later in editing. Thank you for everyone dealing with us in the live stream in the meantime. I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation, traditional custodians of the land on which I conduct my business. I pay my respects to their elders past and present. I stand with the traditional custodians of these lands in working towards a more equal future. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people continue to face discrimination and disadvantage due to our country's colonial past. I stand with them in their fight against injustice. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. And moving on to what we have accomplished over this past week. So as we like to do here at the Camera Ready Confessions, we take a chance to check in with what's been happening over this past week at Video Confidence Coach, making sure to answer any of your questions along the way. In regards to our quarterly focus, we have been working very diligently and very hard with a particular client who has rostered me on for 4 days a week, which is great. Income-wise, not so great time-wise. So it means I will be finishing up with them next week. So that means I will have a lot more availability. So for the people who have been asking, hi, I love you. I promise I'm not blocking out calendars purposely. I just, during these times of life, we have limited capacity and I want to make sure that I answer your questions as well as I can. So do give me some patience in that respect. And if you want to have a conversation with me, Zoe Wood, your video confidence coach, you can check out the disco call in the show notes in the chat below. Really looking over the past couple of conversations that we've had this week. So this week has been a little slow and I think I know why in regards to a couple of things, because we're nearing the end of school terms here in Australia and where I am on a Wadawurrung land in Geelong, Victoria. It's getting closer and closer to the end of term one and everyone's kind of over it, to be honest. The weather has turned and everything's cold. And everything with the cost of life and crisis and everything kind of pushing a bit harder. And also we're getting ever close to Easter. And for a lot of families, that means like, it's like a second Christmas. It is very stressful. And in Australia, Easter is kind of like the alternative thing, in the sense of like you would see a family or one side of your family or one of your families for Christmas, and then Easter is kind of like the alternative opposite. And that does mean that we have a lot of public holidays very crammed together, which means things get weird, things get annoying. And it means that there is a lot of stress involved because, of course, people have to plan things. So I completely understand why things have gone a little quiet for people. But with the conversations that I have had, I want to thank you all for your patience with me, but also thanking you all for answering my questions, filling out any of my forms. And I apologize if you've run into any technical issues or errors, as I am starting new things, but unfortunately also having limited time to fix them. I thank you all for your patience. They will definitely get fixed in that first and second week I come back from this rostered on contract. It just means that things are going to take a little while than I would like. So I apologize if I have sent you the wrong link, or it hasn't worked, or a QR code hasn't worked. I want to apologize, just a blank apology now, if any of those things don't work. I am doing my best to fix those issues. And please do reach out to me. My email, Zoe, ZOE, @vcc.training is my email. You can always reach out to me and let me know if something is wrong, because for a lot of us, and especially any of those personal brand builders or micro business builders, you will know that you do not know something is wrong until someone tells you. No. Ugh. You don't know something is wrong until someone tells you that it's wrong. So please do reach out via email. Please do reach out via phone. I will do my best to fix whatever issue you run into, because we test. There's only so much testing we can do, especially with technology, because of course it is. Thank you. Love you. Thank you for your patience as I fix those issues as they come up. Moving on to the Unboring Your Brand podcast, I want to thank everyone who has been reaching out regardless. I hope you've enjoyed the episodes. We have been making some very big changes to not just the roster, but also what we're offering. And of course, as I have more time, I will be able to devote more time to the podcast. The most recent episode that was released this week is episode 104, Override the AI Robots. So this is one that we recorded where the AI stuff was getting a bit overwhelming, and it continues to be overwhelming, because of course it is. So I want to thank everyone for your time and patience, but also this episode's a little bit of a downer, but also a little bit more positive. It kind of reminded me, but also reminds you, the listener and the watcher, to see AI as what it is. It is a tool that is being overblown, and people have a lot of money invested in it to go, to make big money, and it's not working. So they're going to keep pushing it and shoving it into everything. So I want to tell you now that you are not alone. If you are over this whole AI stuff, totally fair, totally understandable. If you are someone like me who is using it in some aspects of your business to streamline things, awesome, great. It's a tool at the end of the day. What I don't appreciate is everyone using it to make stuff that humans can create, or it's not taking out the work and effort of something that people don't want to do. It is replacing things that people do want to do. Yay. And also utilizing water and energy to do so. So that's fun. All right, I'm going to move on from the topic, but I'll tell you now that the podcast episode is a lot more succinct, a lot more fun, and a lot less. It is a tad ranty, but it's not as ranty as you would imagine. Yeah. And checking in with the Vic podcasters, the Victorian podcasters, where you grow your podcast, podcasting tips, and beginners and new hosts. So this particular podcast that we released on the 16th of March was leading up to our live Q&A that we hold every 3 months. And last Friday, as of recording, was the Scrappy podcast sprint, which was a live Q&A. I want to thank absolutely everyone who turned up to that, and people who watched the replay. I saw the numbers of the replays, and I'm just like, wow, thank you. And I appreciate everyone who joined us in the room. Do not worry if you did not have that flexibility or that time to be able to join us in the room. That is okay. If you are a member of the Vic Podcasters in the LinkedIn or Facebook groups, please do reach out and check out the poll that is in the pinned comment, where you can let us know what you want the next one to be. So that's coming up in late June, and it is going to be aimed at those of us who are 20 episodes and above, people who are either extreme hobbyists or people who are maybe running a business where a podcast is a marketing tool. For any of those people who are you and you're also in the Vic podcasters, please do let us know what type of Q&A you would like. Happy to answer your questions and all your things about podcasting. Let's talk strategy, let's talk planning, let's do this. And I am looking forward to seeing what people want to ask and what questions people have. And for more further information, if you don't know what Vic Podcasters is, you can check it out at vcc.training/Vic-podcasters. That's VIC-podcasters. And you can check that out all on the website. Surprisingly, look at that. I have things for things. I have website things. No, my website isn't bloated. I don't know what you're talking about. I may put a lot of it, because my website is my source of truth. And hopefully, if you are growing your personal brand, having a website, even though in some circles it may seem a bit outdated, it is a place that is your source of truth. It is where you have your stuff every day. That is your source of truth. And in turn, I like to use my website as a tool, which it should be, and I in turn use it for a lot of things. So the website might be a tad bloated, but we'll clean that up later on. Depending. No promises. Don't worry, it's bloated on my end because I can see all the back end. For you, it should be a nice, streamlined experience. Hopefully. Check it out and let me know. Moving on to the what we are talking about today, the topic of the stream, why my videos get ignored. This is a question that I ask myself a lot when I work with clients. It comes up a lot where you're putting in the hours, you're putting in the effort, you're recording your videos, you're repurposing them, you're getting the message as clear and as fine as possible, you're spreading the good gospel of whatever is your message and your whatever you're focusing on, and you hear crickets. You get nothing back. And it just kind of feels like you're constantly running into a wall. You're just like hitting the same beats over and over again and no one's listening. And today we're going to get into a couple of community questions revolving around this topic that come of it from different angles, so I'm going to let you know that. And we're going to go to a podcast episode today for the Unboring Your Brand podcast, which is Get to the Point Fast. And I'll let you know why that is related. But we're going to cut to a break. I'm going to have a drink. And then you're going to be here for community questions. If you're tired of the old cookie cutter marketing advice and want to take your personal brand to the next level with bold, actionable strategies that truly reflect you, you're in the right place. Let's untangle your marketing mayhem with Zoe, the video confidence coach, on the Unboring Your Brand podcast. Here is the part where we talk about community questions. So these are questions that have been sent to me either in DMs, in comments, in emails, in texts, in conversations that I have disco calls, so essentially discovery calls, that are good 13-minute conversations that I can chat with you about whatever you need, obviously regarding personal branding, video marketing, and that link together. In that realm, this is where that most of these community questions come from. And in regards to today's themes, I want to check on or clarify something for all of us watching today. When it comes to the topic of why my videos are getting ignored, or Zoe, why is the algorithm ignoring me? It's not necessarily that you're being ignored. It's more that your message isn't clear enough. Now, I'm not saying that everything all has to do with you. I don't want you to feel powerless in the situation or that you are constantly at fault, because that is something I do not want to give you right now. I do not want to give you a complex. But when it comes to putting yourself out there, putting your message out there, your message needs to be three things. It needs to be clear. You need to use language that doesn't involve jargon, that doesn't involve doublespeak, that doesn't walk all over itself. It needs to be clear and concise. It also needs to be repeatable by you as the person who is growing a personal brand, putting the message out there, doing the work. But more importantly, it needs to be repeatable by your audience. Because your audience isn't just made up of the people that you ultimately serve and help. Your audience is made up of their friends, their family, their co-workers, their boss, their staff. Anyone who is around someone's orbit is also part of your audience, even though they may not be the people that you're speaking to. I know for a fact there is plenty of people that I see, that I come across where I go, oh, this would be a good person for this family member or this co-worker or this staff member. And then I know that you are in those chats, you're in those DMs where you send stuff between, your people back and forth, and you go, I found this person, they're really cool. They help you with this, they help people with this problem. You have this problem. Go check them out. That's what you need to do. And it also needs to be repeatable in the sense of word of mouth. Can someone repeat your core messages? Usually I like to stick to 2 or 3 where they can repeat the same things over and over again. For example, one of my core messages is your personal brand is not about you. That is a core message that is succinct, that is clear. And when people may not know what a personal brand is, they kind of have an idea of what it is. And when it's not about you, they go, what? It makes them pause, makes them think. It's something that people can repeat. And then, stick with me here, they can then search you, find that message that you've repeated again and again and again and again, and they find you because they've found you through your message. They may not remember the name of your brand. They may not remember your name, but they will remember what other people have said. And even if they don't say it perfectly, the algorithms do work their magic to get things together. And in that realm, the third thing that you need to do is have fast messages. So your girl likes to ramble, and I know if you're watching me, you have a potential to do that too. I'm not calling you out here. I'm kind of also calling myself out here. When it comes to fast messages, clear is kind. To be clear, to be repeatable, and it needs to be fast. Why? Because people get distracted, people get worried, and which is why, for example, a hook of a video, which is the first 3 to 5 seconds, needs to be something compelling, needs to stop them from scrolling, or actually capture their attention when they're sitting down to say, watch a video, or you want to get your message out there. You need to do it fastly, you need to do it cleanly, and you need to do it repeatably. Constantly repeat it. You are going to get sick of it, but that is okay, because it's not about you. It's about them. Oh, I know you're listening. And today, the community questions are going to be about this subject in more ways than one. And we're going to go into today's questions. So we've got questions from Fiona, we've got one from Omar, and we've got one from Lauren. And of course, these names, and I've had to remind a couple of people in the comments and in my emails, these people are not real. As in, no, the questions are real. The circumstances, the context is real. I have just given them a different name because confidentiality. And when you communicate and when you work with me, you can always request for things not to be shared. That is perfectly fine. But to be honest, when people come to me, and where people come to you, especially if you are a knowledge leader like myself, people come to you and they are okay with you sharing, aspects of their problem or the way that they communicated things. Why? Because they want other people like them to get help. And if you do a good job, when you do a good job, they want other people to know that you helped them with this problem, the problem that they faced, the problem that they were sitting with for so long and were so overwhelmed by. You were able to help lift that issue off their shoulder. They're going to want other people to do the same. So in turn, make sure you share that. You share that via testimonials. You give people context. Yes, you don't have to give identifying information away because that's just mean. And if someone has a particular problem, if you are specifically in the health sector, for example, people may not want their health information to get out there publicly. So in that, anonymizing this information is going to help yourself, but also help your audience by giving context to where people are coming from. Don't have it be identifying, because especially if it's embarrassing, or it may not be embarrassing to you, the person who is doing the talking and who's constantly in this space, but I can definitely tell, and I've definitely had a couple of conversations, honestly, with men in grey suits. I love you. You're terrified of me at networking events, but I love you all the same. A couple of these men have come to me saying, I don't want to I don't want to reach out to someone like you, Zoe. And I go, why not? And I say that with all the knowledge that I am definitely very loud, very bright, and very gay. So sometimes it doesn't come across. Sometimes the men in grey suits don't really seek my advice. Sometimes. They essentially said that they were worried that it would get out. And seeking help is not a bad thing. And I find this is a very patriarchal male thing, by the way, is that seeking help and seeking support is not a bad thing. I never give away identifying information unless you provide, say, a testimonial and are happy to be identified. That is like one tick in a form box where someone provides me a testimonial and it can just be, private. Or it could be as simple as just like, hey, this is my experience. I don't need to give away any identifying information. Maybe some context as to why they came to me would be helpful to help other people like them. But I don't need to air out their dirty laundry, and neither should you. So in that particular type of situation, I had a conversation with him, and eventually I got to the root of the issue that, surprisingly, as per usual, had nothing to do with me. It had to do with the fact that they had sought out help from other branding experts, and then they went to like a webinar or live stream from the person who they got help with, and they were used as the before, which can be quite sad and become quite confronting. And of course, after we had the conversation, it realized, oh, this isn't a me thing, this is a trauma thing. And the reason I tell you that story is because I understand not wanting to be made fun of or be used as the before instead of the after, which confused me a little bit, because don't you want to show the before and the after? But as the same person, not necessarily two different people, but I digress. Your personal brand is something that you're going to have for the rest of your life. You are allowed to adapt it. You're allowed to change it because it changes with you and whatever stage of life you're at. But your personal brand is not something that you can magically poof away, because we work in a state of capitalism and your reputation precedes you. Your personal brand is your tool of controlling that to an extent that you can. And in that realm, you want to be able to help the people that you want to help, the reason for providing a service. And if you don't want to help anyone, that is fine. But you still need money, I would imagine. You still need you still need to do what you need to do in life. So does it help having a personal brand or investing a lot of money, energy, and getting my help in it? Maybe. But if you're umming and ahhing, continue to watch my content and see if we're in the right fit. And if we're not in the right fit, that is perfectly fine. You can take your time in the meantime. We're going to catch into a question I had from Fiona right after this. This is a potential customer, by the way. They slowly go through the stages of being aware of your brand, maybe seeing a couple of posts of yours, maybe hearing you on a podcast, or maybe coming across your website in a recommendation feed, whatever it is. And they slowly move down these different stages. Now, of course, every business is different, but most of the time these stages are building the knowing factor, the liking factor, and the trusting factor to the point where they go on your website. And then that's pretty much a whole entire other funnel. I want people to see my stuff and go, yes, that's for me. You're my person. So what should my bio and my pinned content say so that people know what I do and how I help them? And don't worry, Fiona, I totally understand where you're coming from. And this is a message that was sent to me. Thank you, Fiona, for that. So when it comes to what to say, especially when you have limited space, limited characters, limited everything, you want your message to be clear. You want to be clear for what you're doing, who you're doing it for, and why. So it can be as simple as you help busy mums with autistic or neurodivergent children in the state of Louisiana. Buy my book. Okay, that's an example that a bit of a rambly example that I gave you there. But you're clearly defining who you work for, what you're actually doing to help the problem, and what action they can take next. This helps by putting it into bios. You can use emojis. I honestly recommend experimenting, especially when you're slowly talking to more and more people. You can clearly define your language even tighter and tighter and tighter, the more people that you speak to, and also see what gets you the more clicks. And then when it comes to your pinned content, so this is content that is on your social media or maybe on your website or somewhere that's kind of permanently stuck there, I would recommend a quick 30-second video that explains, again, those same things: who you serve, why you serve them, and what actions they need to take next if they're interested in your vibe. Maybe something as simple as following you doesn't entirely work as much as it used to in the olden days. When I say the olden days, I mean like 2 or 3 years ago. But for everyone else, when it comes to that content, being able to remind people of who you are, making sure that you stand out and that your message is clear of who you help and why, that is going to help you get so much more eyeballs, and also people giving you feedback, experimenting. You want to get the community that you have to grow so the people that you serve can be helped. Hopefully by you. Bye, Fiona.
Being confident in your product service skill and would definitely be a help despite nerves and stage fright. I completely agree, because once, say for example, if you are new in your business, I completely understand. You have both the nerves of, I'm new at this, I could make, there's so many mistakes I'm going to make, as well as being nervous of getting yourself out there in front of the camera or behind the camera to show your business to the world. There is a different special type of fear involving that. But once you have a bit more confident in your own skills to be able to produce the product or service that you actually do in your business, then you can rest a little bit more on your laurels and give yourself a little bit more of a hug, going, okay, this will be okay. I can do this. Because you will have a bit more confidence in the work that you can produce and the clients that you can help. And hopefully, if those clients that you've worked with or customers that you've sold to are able to give you good feedback, that'll even give you even more robustness.
What are the 4 types of posts I should rotate to make sure people understand what I do? I got a question from Omar here in the DMs, essentially saying, I need structure. I don't want to guess. I don't want to keep going. What do I do, Zoe? All right, Omar, I'm going to tell you now, you're going to need to experiment. No matter what you're doing, no matter what you're saying, no matter who you're talking to, you're going to need to try things out. And in doing so, the 4 types of content that you want to rotate on social media especially, and when I say rotate, you are going to go through these same messages again and again. You are going to have 3 main messages. That count them 3. No more, less if you can, but mainly just those 3 main messages. These are clear messages, less than a sentence, that clarify what you do or things that help you stand out. And I can get more into that into other episodes of the Unboring Your Brand podcast, so make sure you check that out. And then the 4th type of content that you're going to rotate is clarifying who your audience is. I help dads who are overwhelmed with the gardening and who are in Victoria, Australia, and they just want some help with the gardening. They can do it themselves, but they just need to know what to do. I'm here for them. You've clarified who you talk to, why you talk to them, and you're also bridging that with an emotion so people can actually talk to other people. They can have a clear understanding of, okay, this is the person who is for you. You may, your dad or your uncle or someone needs this person. They definitely have this problem, whether they realize it or not, and this person can help them. That is what you can do. And people are going to research. So in turn, being able to have those 3 types of content and those 4 specifically topics enable you to rotate over and over again. Now you can experiment with videos, with images, with carousels, with GIFs, with... you can do anything and everything, and I'm not trying to overwhelm you here, Omar, but ultimately being able to stick to the same things over and over again so you can repeat it, so the algorithm knows who you're for and what you're trying to do, then they're going to send you out to more and more people who are going to like your stuff. Why? Because they want to keep more people on their platform. And in turn, for those people who are really liking your stuff, maybe liking your vibe or your engagement or maybe your message, then they're going to go to your website. They're going to go to your booking page. if you have made it clear of who you serve. For example, you might be serving those people who are, the dads who need help with their garden. You only do it in the state of Victoria, Australia. But you can have fans from all over the world who will also promote your stuff, even though they may not be able to get your services. Why? Because you're clear with your message and who you help. You've got this, Omar.
You can first either grab a drink, because everything in society, and especially in regional networking events, is run by alcohol. I don't recommend drinking, but it's there regardless. So when you first begin, go get a drink first. And most of the time, there's going to be someone getting a drink as well. There's someone going to be at the table where the food and refreshments are. And you can start a conversation about, which drink is the best one to drink here, or what is the best quiche that's on the table, or whatever is. You can start conversations pretty much about anything.
I'm currently updating my LinkedIn presence and I want my messaging to stay consistent across all platforms. How do I do that? Well, Lauren, don't worry, I have your answers right here. Thank you for reaching out. I'll answer these now. So essentially the questions boiled down to, and thank you so much for your professional email. I appreciate all the words. I needed to sum it up a little bit, but thank you very much for that. So the main question that you were asking was, what's the best way to define my personal brand message in one sentence? Ultimately, you don't want your current posts to reflect the value that you don't have clearly, and it can be a bit messy. So this is something that can work definitely on LinkedIn because you're there for professional work, but it can also work on other platforms too. When it comes to your message, you need to define 3 things. And hopefully this is all coming from a human to human thing. Stick with me here. You want your message to be clear, you want it to be repeatable, and you want it to be something that everyone can share. So in turn, this message needs to not contain any jargon, and it needs to clearly define who you help, why you help them, and how do you do that. Just 3 things. Now, we can go full out, and feel free to check out my other formats and other information on how to go about this on the Unboring Your Brand podcast and my website, vcc.training, for a full deep dive, because this is not something we can get done in a This is not something we can get done in a short, sharp video like this. But what we can do in the meantime is to be able to clearly articulate who you serve, why you serve them, and how you serve them. Why? Because the people that you're talking to aren't necessarily the people who are going to be buying from you. They're going to be friends, they're going to be co-workers, they're going to be staff. People don't realize they have problems until they're shown by others who care and love for them. So in that instance, you need to be there with a clear message that clarifies those 3 things. And if you can do it in the least amount of words, while also trying to be emotive and make sure you use your emotions with it, you are kicking goals, my friend. You've got this, Lauren.
Usually at this point, especially with people who know everything, they're going to keep talking regardless. I say this as someone who has been talking for 37 minutes straight so far during a live stream. But what I mean by that is that when people who know everything, and I use very large quotation marks there, when they know everything, they're just going to keep talking. So in that moment, you can just take a breath, try and find your happy place, and then think about, okay, do I have access to be able to move around?
Thank you everyone for joining us for those community questions. I am doing my best to be succinct and clearer and kinder and just not just for myself, but for you, because I do have a tendency of rambling. Speaking of which, guess what our next podcast episode is going to be about? So the podcast for the Unboring Your Brand podcast that we are going to be recording today is Get to the Point Fast. A thing that I need to do for myself, but also for you. So we are going to get into that podcast episode today. Wanted to answer a couple of questions. Thank you everyone who has been leaving comments. Yes, my little ads are a little bit loud, so I will definitely turn those down for you or do my best to update those. Yes, essentially the ads are just snippets that I've kind of all clubbed together, and I put them as little ads, interstitials between my messages so that they can rotate through. Sometimes I am going to be doing my best to kind of have alternate messages be a bit clearer for those, so do not worry, there's going to be some updates coming soon. But in the meantime, let's get ready to get to the point fast.
Cherry says, I'm not a camera person. I like voiceovers, and that's all right. And that's okay too. You've still got your energy, and your voice is still a personality of you. And when people are calling you, are messaging you, are reaching out to you to work with you, they're going to hear your voice. So a voiceover is usually okay for most instances, especially, for example, like Cherry, who works in graphic design, where most of her services of graphic design, which is the output, usually speaks for itself most of the time.
Are your videos feeling like a long walk to a very tiny point? I'm going to ask you to try leading with the answer first, then tell your story, then wrap it up with a quick recap. So let's do that today. Welcome to the Unboring Your Brand podcast. Yes, today is about a point that I have a tendency of rambling and not getting to. So today is going to be a thing for both you and me. It is going to be a joint effort today in the podcast episode because it is about getting to the point fast. So thank you so much to Alex who asked me the question, how do I stop rambling and get to the point faster in my videos? Thank you so much for sending that through. I really appreciate it because that spurred this episode today. And I'm going to stop rambling. We are going to be very juxtaposition in today's podcast episode. I have very clear notes here, which I will continue to follow and stuff up as I always do in my podcast episodes. But I thank you so much for joining me on this journey. When it comes to rambling and talking too much, I am definitely the queen. I am helping you build your personal brand, and I have so much to talk about. I have so much passion and energy to throw at you that I just ramble. And I guess that can feel quite confronting to a lot of people. And it doesn't definitely help when I'm trying to get to point faster. I'm trying to get succinct. I'm guesting on people's podcasts, or I'm on stages, or like I'm trying to put my message out there, and I find myself just yabba 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 yabba. And for you, that is probably also the case in your videos, in your messaging, on your website, maybe even in the posts that you put out on LinkedIn or Instagram. You're finding that you are yabbering a lot, that your videos end up being like 5 or so minutes long when you had one message to say and you just kind of keep talking. That is okay. And I'm not saying that this is a reflection of you or your personality. It just happens a lot, especially if you are nervous or you're still building up your confidence to speak on video. And even if you're not, even if you're someone like me who's been doing this for way too long, I still find myself yabbering and rambling when I don't have a clear plan, when I don't have a strategy in place. And it doesn't even have to be a very complex strategy either. I have my notes in front of me. I have a very clear beginning, middle, and end, and I ignore it some of the time, but I do my best to follow my own notes. And that is the same for you. To be able to clarify your points to a clear thing. So yes, you can put them on social media and get those views and engagements girly, but you can also use it to just spruce up your website copy. You can use it to be clear in your bios, or when you are going to go out there and spread your message, to be clear and succinct so that people remember what you have to say and who you help. Because if they don't remember those two things, they aren't going to be able to repeat it. And when it comes to word of mouth, that is the most crucial type of content that you can, like the best type of marketing, because it's coming from a source that they trust, especially when it comes to word of mouth. And a lot of businesses that I work with, and you are probably also included, whether you know this or not, word of mouth is like 50% of their clientele, repeated clients. Also like referrals from your network. Your network doesn't know who you are and who you serve. They cannot refer you to the people who you serve and who you help. So in turn, this needs to be quick. And in turn, I'm going to stop rambling on the get to the point fast episode. See, the juxtaposition is already showing up. But today, I want to find your default to be context first and land the point at the end. When you are speaking, to try and move away from the method which is currently like providing context. Oh, I need to give you the information. Oh, I need you to know where I'm coming from or what this decision was. Unless it is a clear story tactic, like you're giving, 30 seconds of story that brings people to your emotional state when they were at their lowest, so that they started this business because, they felt so helpless when they were dealing with their plumber. I don't know, whatever your story is. Unless that is a very clear, pure strategy, again, we come back to the strategy. You needed to plan this. And if you didn't plan this, that is okay. I want you to think of this really simple formula, which is ASR. ASR. Answer, story, recap. This can be used in many different ways, not just your video content. Even though I am the video confidence coach, I also want to help you with your personal branding and your messaging, which in turn, this is the format that can be used for that. So this is one of my default formulas that I like to use, especially in those times where I'm kind of put on the spot, or I go to a networking event and for some reason I must have a face for it, where I get picked out from the audience for some reason and told to come up on stage and just do my thing. And then I'm kind of standing there being like, I don't have the energy for this. Or I wasn't prepared for this, so I don't have anything planned. The strategy. Here is a format that I can fall back on and use. This I'm going to stumble over my words a couple of times in this episode. This ASR format allows you to flip the rambling points back onto your listener so they get value immediately, especially when they're time poor, which a lot of us in this day and age are. The aim is for your answer that is in one sentence, maximum 2 or 3. So let's go into breaking down these answer, story, recap methodology. What you can do, and do your best to try and keep it as succinct as possible. I'm going to tell you now that when you are put on the spot, or when you have to use this type of format in whatever you speak, again, your videos, your messages, your website, wherever you are, you can use that as the starting block to get you going. Because for a lot of people, it's usually just that starting part. It's the blank cursor blinking on the screen. It's hard to get started. And if you have this ASR framework, something that you can, write on a post-it note and stick it to your laptop, or something that you maybe have on a whiteboard, or something that you have in your car or on your phone, something that you can repeat again and again. For example, my tagline that I like to use, not part of this framework, but something that I remember is, I help you shine as the obvious choice using a personalized video toolkit. Yes, that took a bit of time to put together, but it also clarifies to people what I do. I help you shine as the obvious choice. Forget the rest, you're here. And you can do that via a personalized video toolkit, because it's not just one tool. It's not just one video, it's multiple. And that's something that gets it clear to across, that gets me started whenever I'm introducing myself. I put it on the audience, I don't put it on myself. And then I can start talking about whatever the question, whatever the issue, whenever I put on the spot. I put the answer, then the story, and then the recap. So the way that this works, I highly recommend something that is a 1 sentence, 2 sentence, maximum 3. You want this to be short, sharp, something that you can repeat, and also something that people can search later. And this works on all forms of podcast structure, like long form, short form, essentially getting your message out there. And let's break this down. So we've got answer, which is essentially, of course, answering, saying the point first before you warm it up with a backstory. Trying to lead with dessert and then going to the main course. You want to try and give people the answer that they're seeking, especially if they are time poor, because then they'll stop. They'll stop scrolling, they'll stop looking at their phone, or in most cases, especially when I use this format, they look up and they realize, oh, you're actually here to help me with my problem, especially if you're at a live event. Getting those people to stop, zoning out and pull back in is a beautiful feeling. I highly recommend, especially if you are not speaking yet for what you are doing or the message that you want to provide or the people you want to help. Highly recommend public speaking. That is not what we are touching today. We're getting back to this to get to the point and to speak faster. The next part is S, which is story. So you've already started with the answer. You've already started with the gold nugget, the thing that they put their head up, or they get them really engaged. Like, what? What? From there, you then give it a beginning, a middle, and an end that adds context and makes you relatable. This allows you to have a clear story. And again, this doesn't have to be a rambling story either. Like I said, 2 or 3 sentences. You can actually do a lot with a few words. I like to think of it as if you're talking to a 4th grader, or in Australia it's year 4. 4th grader in America, around about the same time. And essentially, when you're speaking to someone, you're using clear language. You're not using any jargon. You're not using any short form or anagrams or whatever. You're clearly defining the beginning, the middle, and the end that your answer related to. And it also, bonus points if you come from a place of human emotion. No matter what, humans are emotional creatures. We may feel like we can be logical creatures, but underneath, everything's kind of driven by emotional feeling. And in that terminology, you need to be able to bring that story. You need to be able to break down that tribulation, that trial, that whatever people were experiencing to get to that answer. Again, you lead with the gold nugget, and you give them a little bit more. It helps if it's a personal story, a personal anecdote, or an experience that you had. Or if it's not, for example, in your wheelhouse of something that you personally experienced, maybe it's that of a loved one or a friend. Obviously with their permission, of course, because a lot of people don't just want their story out there when they can't tell it themselves, or they're not in the room to tell it themselves. So in that methodology, you want to be able to use a story that is coming from your either point of view or your feelings or an experience that happened to you. This is not a time to be generic. And unless you've tuned your AI tools real tight, you're going to get generic slop. So in the meantime, this is the time where you use your brain and your experience here. And with that story in mind, you want to have it in a growth moment. You want it to be not necessarily a negative experience, but something that you or your tools or your knowledge or your expertise or your experience or your message, whatever it is, it has to be a growth moment. So what I mean by growth moment is it is a mistake. It is a life lesson you learned. It is a change of your opinions or a change of mind. It is something that helps you put in context why the answer matter. Because again, answer, story. And now here we are. The recap can be really short and simple. So the R is for recap. This can be really simple. You can close it with a simple summary. So your listener, your watcher, your viewer, your audience remembers the point. The answer wasn't necessarily the point, but this is what I mean by that. When it comes to the answer, in that answer story section, your answer is the gold nugget, the glitter, the fleck that gets people's attention. The story brings that emotional gap and bridges that emotional gap so that your audience can understand where you're coming from. And the recap can be a clarification of what the point of that story was, why the answer mattered, because again, you're doing this in less than 2 or 3 sentences, and it can be really succinct and as a way to kind of bridge that gap for you. And if it's a big question, like if it's a big thing that you've been asked, or maybe something that you're not entirely prepared for, happens to me a lot, you don't need to answer in the first 2 to 3 seconds. And if it's a big question, you can take a beat. Formulate this SASR methodology, and especially with the recap, being able to hammer home the point in really clear beats allows you to get your point across clearer. And this point can be, again, the life lesson that you learned, the reason why you started your personal brand or your business, the reason you do what you do could be the recap. A smart person would be able to ascertain that from the answer in the story, but maybe you just want to recap for people who maybe aren't fully paying attention just yet. And with those answers, and in any video that you create, you want the hook, which is the first 3 to 5 seconds of a video, to be crucial. This is something where you don't want to fall over yourself in those first 3 to 5 seconds. You want to be able to grab people's attention, very much like the dessert before dinner, like that gold nugget fleck to get people on board. Because the story is going to keep people there, but you need to attract their attention first. And in those instances, using that ASR framework is going to help you do that. But this is going to take some practice. So I highly recommend giving yourself a chance to maybe sit down with half an hour or an hour, usually an hour if you're working with someone else, and work with either a staff member or maybe a family or friend, or someone who has, knowledge of what you do, but they need to tell other people what you do. So in those specific instances, being able to think about, okay, they talked about, like, when you're telling people what I do, what language do you use? And if they're like, I tell them you work with leaders, that's about it, then you might need to work. You might need to work on this, and you need to work on your answer, story, recap. Take an hour, take a time, write down ideas, messages, thoughts. Again, keep your audience in front of mind. Keep that emotional connection front of mind. This is something that you're going to need to practice. Once you have nailed it down, be up for change. I know for a fact that I continually change my my ASR, my ultimate different starters. I always change this formula to suit. Again, it's always the answer, story, recap is the format, but I change depending on who I am. Maybe I've learned a few things about the language that I'm using. Maybe personal branding, the term is just too nebulous. So I need to start with something else that's clearer. Reputation. People understand what reputation is. I'll start with that as opposed to personal. There are plenty of things that you can change. But expect to practice this. Expect to be something that you use over and over again, to stop rambling, to stop over-explaining, to stop over-giving context. Because if people want an answer, they want it quick, and they want it fast. I know that is the same thing that I've just repeated. In those instances, you want to be able to have the answer, again, the good stuff up first, the story that helps them sit tight, and the recap reminds them of what the whole point of your conversation was. This can be expanded to a 2-hour podcast. This can be shortened to a nice, short, sharp 30-second video. Whatever it is, it doesn't entirely matter what the format is. I know that sounds a bit strange coming from me, but feel free to check out my episode regarding about the final format doesn't matter. I can't remember what the exact title is. Feel free to check out the show notes for that. But in that instance, it doesn't really matter what the end product is, as long as you know what that answer, story, recap is. This is a format that you can use to extend over wide periods or short periods, whatever you need. This is a format that you can constantly fall back on in those times where you're unsure of what to say. You know who you serve. You know your message. You know what services you provide to help them with their problem. Bridge those together. Answer, story, recap. Start with the answer, not the backstory, not the context. I do not give a shit, and your audience doesn't give a shit. Keep your answers to 1 to 3 sentences. Keep it quick. Keep it nice. So you can remember it and you can repeat it. You are going to get sick of this. Do not worry. You are definitely going to get sick of this. But the people that you meet aren't. You're going to tell a personal, emotional story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if you can't think of an emotional story, talk to someone else. Talk to a real-life human who can help you with that. Understand, be able to put in words those emotional feelings. And if you need to add some embellishments, sure, go ahead. You are not a generic AI. And at that end, and in that story, making sure to cover a growth moment so it feels human and memorable. Making sure that you cover those particular areas about was it a mistake? Was it a life lesson? What did you learn? Did your opinion change? What happened? Tell me. And make sure to finish with a recap so the point of your ASR sticks. And an opener can be repurposed for everything that you do and say. This ASR technique can be used whenever you need to speak your message. You can change it up depending on how you feel. And you can have one, like I said, this format can be used for anything and everything. But if you do have a couple of, ASR formats in your back pocket, so in the event that you are brought up on stage, or that you're on a podcast, or if you're in those situations where you need to talk to someone, maybe you're in a pitch meeting with a client and they say something and you come out with this ASR and they're left there going, yes, I will hire you. Yes, you are the right person for the job. Whatever it is, this format can be used for it, but you're gonna need to practice it. And you've got this. So, as you can imagine, the related episodes related to this episode to line up in your podcast player next is episode 42, Prioritizing Strategy Over Format. That was the episode that I was mentioning. Wait, no, the next one is the one I was mentioning. So 42 was about prioritizing your strategy over format, because it doesn't entirely, I have the philosophy that the end product doesn't entirely matter. As long as it gets to your audience, that's what matters. But when it comes to the format it comes in, not entirely as important as the message and the strategy behind that, and making sure that strategy is repeated a crap ton. But the episode that I was talking about before is episode 74, Don't Force the Final Format. So this episode reinforces the stories before formats so that your ASR format beats the first come and the platform comes second, because your message is more important than if it's a TikTok video or a live stream. Your message is more important than, oh, does this go on a brochure or a billboard? Your message is more important than just, oh, does it go on a video that I post on my Instagram, or should it go on my Instagram stories? Your message is more important than where it ends up. You need to repeat it again and again and again, which I'm aware can get boring, but it's not going to be boring to the people you help and serve. And in turn, your simple action, as you can probably guess from today's episode, is making your own SAR miniscript. Ultimately, you want to be able to have some of these in your back pocket, in your memory, or maybe something that you can use again and again to help you with your next Q&A video that is like 10 minutes long, or something that, have in your back pocket to create a series of shorter videos to go on social media and your website. Again, like I said, format doesn't matter here. We need to focus on your answer, one sentence, your story, which is around about 3 beats, I should say, a start, middle, and an end, with that emotional hook and that growth moment in the middle of it. You can start with the beginning with that growth moment, maybe in the middle, whatever you need. And then finishing it up with one sentence that is your recap. Once you've practiced this a couple of times, hit record. You don't need to go any more than 2 times, because once you've worked over those kinks, once you've worked over those stumbles, stop, take a breath, record again. That second one's going to be better. That's probably the second one that you're going to use. If you find yourself recording again and again and again, take a break, take a pause. It is not the right time for you. It is not what you need. Take a break, come back and record again. However you're going to be using this format, I wish you all the best. And for those who have joined us until the end of the episode, make sure to check out our disco chats, where we do a little bit of dancing, but I also answer all your personal branding and video marketing questions, and also help you on the next steps of your journey to be able to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve. And if you're feeling generous, please do hit subscribe and follow so you don't miss the next one, which will be next week, 6 a.m. Wednesday, Australian time. And then it is Tuesday night for everyone else in the world, because Australia comes first. And if you're feeling oh so generous, please do give us 5 stars and a quick rating or review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, because I'd love to know what you think. Cheers, and I'll see you next week. Bye. I ask you, as the listener or watcher of this podcast, what is your social media doing for you? And then subsequently, what is the priority for you when it comes to social media? And what I mean by priority is not just, what platform or what type of content are you doing or what are you talking about? No, I'm not talking about the minutiae of that. I'm talking about when it comes to social media and your priority for it, where does it sit? And my recommendation for every single business out there, no matter what you do, no matter how much lead traction or maybe even money that you get from people signing up via social media platforms, Your website should be your top priority. Your website is the platform that you can control, and everything feeds into it. Everything that is your platform, that is your consistency, that enables you to say and do whatever whatever your business is about. And there's very little repercussions because it is your website. Thank you everyone for your comments and your questions and your thoughts and your ideas today that I will tackle probably after the live stream because we're nearing the end of today's session. Thank you everyone who was in hashtag replay squad who watched us after we went live initially. If you missed any part of today's stream, you can watch or listen the whole live stream on your platform of choice, or make sure to check out the first link in the show notes to come to a very detailed breakdown of everything, and I'll answer your questions wherever they may be. You can check it out at bcc.training/camera-ready-confessions. Next week we have... Yes, all right, that's why. So I had a little bit of an error on my end. I'm like, why is this not working? And I realized next week we're going to take a break because we are finishing up a very large contract here at Video Confidence Coach and I need a break. So we're going to take the Easter Good Friday time off. I'm going to breathe a little bit. So we're going to take that time to take that week off. Thank you everyone who has been patient with me in that meantime. But the week after, which will be April 10th, 2026 at 10 a.m. Melbourne time, will be episode 44 of the live stream. Guess who had an energy drink? Episode 44, Strong Structure Makes You Sound Smart. So the episode specifically is going to be about, yes. So please join us. Strong structure makes you sound smart. Join us for our upcoming Camera Ready Confessions, where winging it may work for karaoke, but when it comes to your video marketing, not so much. This Friday, we're talking about the secret sauce that instantly makes you sound more confident, clear, and clever on camera. What is it? Dun da da da, structure. Whether you're a coach, a consultant, a founder, industry leader, or however you find yourself in this wonderful world of ours, you have a go-to structure that takes the pressure off you and keeps your message on point because you're trying to be as clear as possible. I'll walk you through my favorite video frameworks, ones that work at any stage of business or personal brand building, and you don't require a film degree and 17-page script because we do not have time for that. Because sounding smart shouldn't feel hard. Just preparing for it might be, but you got this. We'll also cover any trending subjects in the world of personal branding and video marketing because that's what we do here at the Camera Ready Confessions. Join me at 10 a.m. Australian Eastern... Nope. So join me 10 a.m. next... So join me 10 a.m. on your platform of choice on the Friday, and we'll see you there. And if we're not talking about that subject, we're definitely talking about other ones relating to what else? Personal branding and video marketing, because I'm your video confidence coach. And thank you so much for joining me today. Confess your camera sins. Confess your camera sins next week, same time, same place.